Oh, hey, Lightworkers. I'm here today with a topic that can make even the most enlightened woman suddenly forget her password: money. Today's episode is a FaceTime brainstorm with one of my favorite systems alchemists and the president of Soulopreneur Productions, Kayla Winter, who's leading our Conscious Creators Circle. And we're going to riff on two blogs, one she wrote and one I wrote. They both basically say the same thing, just in our unique accents. And that is that money isn't the enemy, but your nervous system might think it still is. And just so you know, Kayla and I are not doing a formal lecture here today. This is the messy, brilliant, behind the scenes kind of conversation where we're asking, how do we serve spiritual entrepreneurs better without accidentally building a business that feels like an energetic haunted house? Oh, there she is. Kayla!
Hey, Joy.
Okay, I'm recording, as you know, so we want to pretend that we are absolutely fabulous.
I think we can do that.
All right. Well, perfect. Let's talk about, I think, one of our both favorite subjects, right? Let's talk about money without the flinch. Got it?
Yep.
Okay. So your line, Kayla, something that you wrote in your blog that I thought was genius: money doesn't respond to force, it responds to safety. I mean, that was so powerful. When you say safety, in quotes, right? What do you actually mean? Like, what's the lived experience of that for a spiritual entrepreneur?
That is one of the things you and I actually talk about a lot whenever we see a spiritual entrepreneur who does not feel safe with money. Now that we know what it looks like, it's so easy to spot. And we've had discussions around, well, maybe we should teach a class on how to release money blocks, and because it comes up a lot. And the safety, I think, comes from, it's the opposite of the feeling of scarcity a lot of spiritual businesses think they have to live through to be running an actual spiritual business. So the safety part is, I like to say, it feels almost like a trustful, like you understand that if you are living your divine purpose and you're answering the call, that the universe has your back and you're allowing it to show up and meet you where you need to be to continue your purpose.
I love that because I think, it shows up in ways that light workers don't necessarily realize. I know it had for me, in my life, but it shows up like urgency or over delivering or even guilt when it's just actually really easy.
Yeah.
So I want to underline, Kayla, something else that you talked about. A lot of people, or maybe I actually talked about this one, a lot of people think they have a strategy problem. When they come to us, they think it's all about strategy. But it's really a safety problem. And it's that trust, right, that the universe has your back, and stepping into that trust. And spiritual women especially are really good at disguising dysregulation as quote unquote dedication. Or one of my favorites is guidance. Well, I had guidance to do this or to not do this, right? I'm just wondering, like with our audience, just how they feel. Like I'm putting this out to the people that are listening to us right now. A quick way to check in on this is when money feels wobbly, like when you have this kind of weird feeling around it, do you find yourself speeding up or shutting down? And there's no shame in the answer. It's just a good way to like check in with yourself to see if you actually don't feel safe around the subject of money, right? Mm-hmm. So, Kayla, what are the top 3 things that are disguised as hustle that you see in spiritual business owners, especially the ones that we've been working with, and you work with a lot that are in the early stage through Conscious Creators Circle.
Yeah. So you're asking me, what are the top 3 ways that this shows up for them?
Absolutely.
Okay. So I believe that they feel restricted in their ability to pick one person that they're talking to because they think that they have to talk to everybody to find the people to purchase. So the way that that shows up for them is that they're actually just creating new product after new product or launching this and just all these new things, trying to get someone from their Facebook page or someone from their email list to buy because they don't feel safe with the offer that they have that shows their expertise. So they're guessing and like just throwing spaghetti on the wall. The other one is whenever they feel like they have to give, and they're not allowed to take or receive. And I've said before, I don't remember if it was the last time we talked or when, but it's actually 2 to 3 times more expensive to run a spiritual business than it is a regular business because people want you to do everything for free. And someone who doesn't feel safe receiving will give so much that they can't afford to pay themselves and therefore they can't run their business. And I think the other big one is hiding. I see them hiding behind what they think they should do instead of what they're called to do. And that can show up as, I think I have to do what everybody else in this industry has done to be successful. I need to get a vendor booth at this event, or I need to pay somebody to build me a website because they don't feel safe trusting their path. They want to do what they've seen other people do. And I don't know if those make sense, but those are key indicators for me that somebody does not feel safe with money and therefore cannot allow themselves to receive.
Yeah, and I bet, I mean, we've even seen it in Million Dollar Lightworker. It's one of the things that we help people with. But in Conscious Creators Circle, it matters a lot, right? Because you're helping them build that foundation. You're helping them have that safe space where they can have these conversations. Sometimes I know, like, you know, I've been through all kinds of blocks that I've busted through, you know, in my career. That's why it's easy to recognize it in other people. But I think what we see is that, like, people don't necessarily trust that the one offer that they have or the one program that they've already got out there is great the way it is. They just need to find their market, right? They don't need another funnel. They don't need another way to market it. It takes stability, and then that gets into kind of a rhythm. And then, as you said, they have to have the capacity to be able to receive what comes from that. So the business isn't just built on adrenaline. We all know what that feels like.
Right. It is totally about whether or not you have the capacity to receive, like what you feel, what you're able to receive is often a direct reflection of what you're actually available for. Like what you're allowing yourself. You know, I think I'm going to compare this to your calendar. You will block off time to do something, and then all of a sudden, people want that time. It can get filled very quickly. My calendar's the same way. If I don't make myself available to do the things that I know I need to do to receive the money from the product we're focused on or from the project that we know we need to get out there to further our mission, I am not, it's all about worthiness. So I'm not available because I don't feel like what I'm doing is worthy of my time.
Right.
I know it, like, time is also a resource. And if you could pay more money to get back more time, would you? So are you available for what you're asking your higher self, the universe, for? Are you making it your priority, or are you putting other stuff in front of it, like the busy work? And if you get in your own way, then you're not feeling safe with money. You're not trusting that you're worthy of receiving. You're putting everything else in front of it.
Yeah, and a pattern that I actually noticed of myself was when you said to me, why don't you just start blocking out Wednesdays as head down time, time to like work on that list of things that just doesn't seem to go away, right? And it was really helpful advice. But the thing that I noticed when we were discussing that was my brain went to, oh, well, all of this stuff I'll do at night when everybody else isn't working, or I'll do it on the weekend when everybody else isn't working. And it took me a while to realize that, wait a second, why do I have to work all of the time, like during the regular work week, so that I have the other time to enjoy other aspects of my life? So that was a really powerful exercise for me.
Yeah, that time to enjoy everything you've built.
Yeah, yeah. So also in that blog, Kayla, I wrote, some of the smartest, most intuitive, heart-led people, and we know who they are, right? We watch them, they still don't feel safe with money. And I told the story about how me and one of my first business partners basically were saying to the universe, which I still like chuckle when I think about this, because we were telling the universe what we wanted, and the universe was giving us exactly what we were asking for. We'd say, we'll do anything for spirit as long as you pay our bills. And somehow our bills got paid, but we were always broke because that's all it did was pay the bills, right? Why do you think, Kayla, that spiritual people can be so powerful, up on stage, in energy, delivering messages, but yet still flinch when abundance comes knocking?
I don't think they're going to like my answer. I think it is shame, honestly. I think they feel ashamed to have to ask for money to do what they do. And I love that we get to work with light workers, because that makes it really easy to say, okay, you are the lighthouse of your mission. You have to keep the light on. And in order to keep that light on, visitors that come to the lighthouse, they usually pay a fee, or they buy something from the gift shop and they bring their friends and they make it, a yearly thing to go to the lighthouse. You are guiding people, and you have to live and feel supported. I think that analogy is a really strong one, because you cannot keep shining your light, this little light of mine, or putting those ripples out there, if you are so scared about living paycheck to paycheck, or I know I need to share this message at this event, but I can't afford the flight to get there. So I guess I'm going to drive, which means I have to take days off work. Like, I've seen so many versions of that show up, where if you just settle in and allow yourself to receive, there are people that follow you. They look for your light, that want to support you. And if you're shying away from an offer or giving them the link to support you, they're not going to be able to do it. And just like you said, I took this directly from you to get the word ask tattooed on my hands, because the universe is not on a budget. Just ask,
Yeah, and you can ask for more too, because like I love the analogy of the lighthouse and keeping the light on. It's like Motel 6, right? We'll keep the light on. Do you want to be Motel 6 with the light on, or do you want to be like at one of Marriott's Bonvoy finer resorts? You know, it's like it's the difference between that as well, right? In how and what you're asking for. It's like there is, I think, in with spiritual entrepreneurs sometimes what I call the invisible vow, and and I think that people come by it honest, right? Like it's just patterns, it's ways that we've been trained, mostly by the church, about money, and I often will hear them say something like, "I want to make a massive impact." But what I hear is, but I don't want anybody mad at me for what I'm charging. And, that's not really a business plan. I mean, in any other industry, it would be a very different conversation. And I just think that is one of the things that light workers, we witness when we come across light workers trying to expand their businesses. That's something that they have to come to terms with, that it's okay to, make enough money to have that massive impact. And this is for the people who are listening. If you're listening, I want you to try this, because this is something that I think can help. If you're driving, you want to just say it quietly, but I want you to say out loud, I am willing to be well resourced, because money is just a resource, right? And then notice what your body does. Like, this is something that you can do, in your own home. You don't have to do it in front of anybody. But if you notice that your shoulders tense or your throat tightens, then that's not necessarily a mindset issue. That's really what you're talking about, Kayla, the capacity to receive. So I want to bring in one of my favorite exercises that actually I learned from one of our podcast guests, Monique Halm, and it's what I call money felt that. And I know even Carl and I constantly joke around about this, like when we're dreaming big and we start to say, oh, well, that might take years, or like we start to put a limitation on it, we both look at each other and go, money just felt that. Because, even though it's really fun, it's also very diagnostic, right? How would you explain that concept in a way that doesn't sound like we're yelling at people's bank accounts?
What's so interesting is we literally just posted on Instagram about this exact thing. So if you're listening now, just scroll back a little bit and check out our Instagram. Shameless plug. I think that when you asked everyone to say, I'm willing to be well resourced, for me, it made me feel like my shoulders relaxed. And it was an affirmation for me, or to remember that, yeah, I am willing to be well resourced. And I think you don't have to. I said earlier that I think that happens because of shame. Leave that shame in the past. Like, don't carry that forward with you. Just recognize what you feel when you say things like, I'm willing to be well resourced. Feel it and release it. Because I think that the way you feel towards money is, like you said in the vision board class, it's all about your ability to feel worthy. And so it's a mirror. Do you feel that you are allowed to hold that much money and steward that much money? And that I have to reframe for a lot of people that I know. I don't know if it's my generation or the area I live in, but people say money is the root of all evil. And that is such a strong programming. I have to say, No. Number one, if you need something to blame evil on, blame it on greed. Like, greed is just the act of holding back resources from where they need to go. Instead, you need to think about, what can I build and who can I help with the money? And therefore, it's not evil at all. It's not greed. It's not evil. You are shining your light, creating ripples. And if you can picture a way that what you will do with that money, you may allow yourself to receive it with more ease and feel more worthy of holding the money. Actually spoke a lot in the vision board class that we did on Enlighten about worthiness and how achieving your vision is all about feeling worthy, and you need resources to achieve your vision.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And something else that we often hear is because our market does tend to be a little older and does tend to be female, usually, between the age of 40 and 80, right? One myth that I often hear is, oh, I'm too old to do that. Or am I too old? It's too late for me to do that. And it makes me think of Louise Hay. We all know Louise Hay's work, right? I mean, she is basically she built the modern spiritual marketplace. But the thing that I love about her story is she didn't build her impact in her 20s or even her 30s or 40s or 50s. I mean, her most famous book that we all know, You Can Heal Your Life, came out in 1984. And she was basically, I think, already in her late 40s. And the part that I love was she built Hay House, this entire publishing platform, a very real business that helped other spiritual teachers get seen. And I always think that, if you're 52 or 63 and you're thinking, I missed my moment, think about Louise. And there's actually a lot of examples of people who really made their money later in life, but she's a great example of what I mean when I say your message doesn't ever expire. It's just getting better. It's maturing, right? And another example too, and by the way, these are people that they had to work through their issues. Like they probably had, a lot of ideas and thoughts about this, but their work didn't really come into greatness until they were ready, until it was ready. Another one is Eckhart Tolle, one of my favorite spiritual teachers. I mean, he sat on a park bench for a couple of years, as kind of a homeless person. And his first book wasn't published until 1997. And it was a word of mouth phenomenon. Now, that's not the organization he has now. I'm sure he has to bring in a lot of money to support the kind of work that he's doing that is making a massive impact. But I think that, his message proves that your work doesn't need to scream right away to be powerful. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time. It's sort of like believing and sticking with it, like you were talking about earlier, so that the most prosperous thing you can do is, as Eckhart Tolle did, become present so you can get clear. And then the world can finally feel you. Sometimes I think we're pushing, like, you talk about flow versus force all the time, and that's a great example. What do you think shifts for people later in life? I mean, you and I are from two different generations, which is really great because we often get to have really fun conversations about the differences in our generations. What do you think shifts for people later in life that actually makes them more likely to succeed if they'll let it in?
I think some of the most amazing people I know are twice or more my age. And Robert and I, my husband, often have best friends that are between 60 and 80. And we've even said, if we could live in a 55 and older community, we'd fit right in. So I think that the big difference is when you get past the age of 40, and I'm not there yet, but I feel it coming, like I can feel the difference. You know who you are, and you know every single day just how precious life is. And in your 20s, I think you feel like you're running out of time. And in your 40s, you think, I've got time. I know who I am. Now I just need to, the whole what problem do you solve and who do you solve it for? I need to solve those problems for the people that need it. And you're not trying to fit into peer pressure anymore. You know your power. And I don't know for sure because I haven't been there yet, but I can imagine that there's still a level of how will I be perceived with everyone, male or female, any age, no matter the generation you're from. I just think you care less about what your high school friends or your parents or your siblings are going to think because they've gone out and done what they want to do, you know? I
Yeah.
don't know if that makes sense. It just feels like you have your identity established more and you're more comfortable to just be yourself the older you get. I see some younger people coming in that are just fully themselves right away. And I think that's maybe the head start that they have. Not that they don't still have lessons to learn, but by your 40s, you've learned a lot of lessons that show you what you don't want out of life. And I think that everybody came into this world to learn a certain lesson, and we're all going to arrive at that at the right time. And you're right. There's so many examples of people that got started later in life and then still went on to live, 30, even 40 years of this amazing vision filled reality that they manifested for themselves. It's never too late. Never too late.
Absolutely. I mean, Grandma Moses, Ariana Huffington. I heard the other day Colonel Sanders didn't even start cooking in a commercial building until he was like in his late 50s or something. Yeah. It's interesting that you bring that up because Carl and I, as most people know, we're newlyweds, although it sounds funny because I feel like I've known him my whole life. But we got married, almost 2 years ago now. Wow. And we had this whole idea that we were going to take our motor home and go to all the national parks. And in the meantime, in the background, we were building these businesses. And we were having so much fun building the studio, building our house, building enlightened.tv, when we looked at each other and said, we're not going to the national parks. We're not going to have time to do that. But it wasn't like we were sad because of that. We actually had leaned into something that we were having so much more fun. I think it kind of surprised both of us that, no, what we really want to do is what we're doing right now. And, of course, we are ageless, we like to say, but we are, in our mid 60s. And what you said about not caring as much is absolutely true. I think for me, it hit me like a couple years ago. Once I realized that gravity was going to take my body no matter what, and once I realized that, and I think, Carl, it's better when you're like as a couple because like we support each other in laughter on these things. Once we realized that, that things do start to age, although you can slow it down and you can stay in really good shape, I think we both sort of realized that we didn't have to live our life the way that society expected us to, that instead we didn't really care what anybody thought or said. We just were leaning more into the things that we really, really loved to do. And I think that does happen as you get older, is And I don't know I don't know why that is. But I've heard other sides of that too. You know, the favorite aunt who has no filter. You go to Thanksgiving and just says what she wants to say. So I don't know if all of those things come with that, but I think you make a really good point. And to wrap this all up, Kayla, let's do something a little very super practical for our audience. Because I'm sure are still people out there thinking, okay, well, maybe I do hustle a little bit, and maybe I do flinch. And you know what? I think that it's great if you recognize that in yourself. I mean, shoot, there's certain dollar figures, if you start hitting lots of commas and zeros, I'll start flinching too. You know, I think it's natural for us, right? You are such a big advocate of force, of trusting, of flow, not force, of force, not of trusting, not forcing. I'll put it that way. And I know you I don't want to say drill this into the team, but you inspire the team with this. What are 3 gentle shifts people can make this week that move them more into that, from forcing or, you know, having this uncomfortable feeling, to trusting their decisions, trusting that everything's okay? Or how did you do it?
Oh, that's a long story. But, you know, the long story could be, you know, the short of the long is it's a choice that you make. And I think my mantras this year are flow over force, and what you're not changing, you're choosing. So if I am choosing to stay uncomfortable with money, it's my choice, regardless of what triggers come up, regardless of what I think, you know, my grandma's going to think about it. It's so funny, when I hit one of the first big milestones in my professional life, she said, well, I never made that much. And I'm like, sorry, you know, I'm happy to, you know, she has a puzzle subscription that I pay for, and she loves that. So that's where we get with that. I think 3 things that you can do that I often do are, I like visualizations. Robert and I used to say, if we win the lottery, what are we going to do with it? And I don't play that game anymore, because I say, I don't need to win the lottery. I just say, what am I creating? And then I trust that if I'm taking inspired action towards what I'm creating, I'm also, by taking that action, allowing the resources that I need when I need them, or before I need them, to appear. And again, like, trust falling into my vision. So it's like a formula: A plus B equals C. C is the vision. A is the aligned action that I'm taking. So B must happen. It's inevitable then that if I'm taking aligned action toward the vision, that the road will rise up to meet me, you know? And so it is trust, but it's visualizing what you're creating with the abundance. And that allows you to then, number 2, affirm statements that I trust myself with abundance. Money is allowed to come to me with ease. I am safe when I slow down, because that we talked earlier about, you know, busy work is not always the right type of work. And just because you feel urgent and push out more products, it doesn't mean you're actually doing anything. So I'm safe when I slow down, and I'm safe to receive. Say these things over and over until you one day believe it. And you notice, we talk a lot about changing the bracelet. When you have a negative self-talk where you would think money heard that, change the bracelet and replace it with, I trust myself with abundance. And then I think probably the third big thing is don't accept anything other than clarity. Because when you're not clear about what you're creating, you will throw money like spaghetti at the wall and see that nothing comes from it. And then it makes you tense up about spending money again on your vision. That's not strategy, though. That's a lack of clarity. And so once you are really clear about what problems you solve and who you solve them for, it's very easy to know how to invest in that and how to offer that as a package. So the three things to sum up are visualize, affirm, and get clear.
I love that. I can I add one more to it?
Of course.
I would add, like, once you're clear, feel how it feels. Because something that I learned, I think I'm pretty good now at just immediately getting clear on things. But I realized when I manifested the love of my life, which I was not looking for, so I was not clear about that I even wanted that, but I was clear about how I wanted to feel. And, the thing that I said was so simple. I just said, I want to have fun. And so when fun came along, it was kind of a no-brainer, And I think that when people realize that that's how simple it is, you're clear, you know what you want. I mean, I watch people make these big, long lists of all the details of everything that they want. And I think sometimes when we do that, we miss the point that we could even, those are all things we know, right? But we could even create something even greater by letting go of the details, because I didn't know fun was going to come in the form of a husband. I just wanted someone to ride bikes with. I didn't know I was going to get basically this amazing partner who liked to do pretty much all the same things I like to do. But I think it was just because of the feeling. Yeah. So anyway, to wrap this up, Kayla, thank you so much for being on the call. I want to tell everybody that the next episode is going to teach one of my favorite things, and that's the deeper framework behind what I call money felt that, and how it shows up in our pricing, our messaging, and our high ticket ethics. So today is just a touch of what we'll talk about on that podcast. And Kayla, you're just so much fun. I'm so grateful for you. I appreciate you so much being a part of my team and partnering on all these things with me. Is there anything that you want people to leave with?
Well, first of all, I am thankful that I get to show up and be a part of your team. I love the work that we do and that we get to be the lighthouse for others. I think that if I had to leave everybody with one thing, it's just like you said, the feeling and flow over force, because if it feels icky, or when you have that tension in your shoulders, or it's just not the feeling you want to feel when you imagine your vision, it's force. So drop it and flow, because that feeling of flow is what safety feels like.
Nice. All right. Well, I'm going to be hanging up our FaceTime, but I am hanging on to your wisdom, Kayla.
I'll talk to you soon, and thank you for having me.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, Lightworkers, here's what I want you to remember. If you've been chasing money with hustle, you're not broken, you're patterned. And patterns can change. If you're early stage and you want to build stability, capacity, and a real rhythm to your business without pushing your nervous system off a cliff, Kayla's work inside the Conscious Creator Circle is the perfect on-ramp. It's where you learn to receive like it's normal, because it is. And if you're already doing the work, you've got a real offer in your heart, and you're ready to build a clean, high-ticket ecosystem that funds your mission with fewer clients and more impact. That's what we do inside the Million Dollar Lightworker. Either way, you don't have to build a sacred mission on survival mode. Your mission deserves support, and so do you. All right, so go grab some water, let your shoulders drop, and just for fun, whisper, I'm willing to be resourced. I'm willing to be well resourced. Because money felt that.